And that's where I want to welcome in our next guest, longtime Trump advisor and political strategist, Roger Stone. Roger, good to see you.
Great to be here.
How you holding up?
I'm doing okay, thank you.
Feeling good? All right, you've been around politics a long time. And what a lot of people don't know about Roger Stone, some do, is you really are a historian of the presidency, of the process. You were there, you were close with Richard Nixon, you had a front row seat to his almost impeachment, you were there for Bill Clinton. How does what we're seeing today differ historically from the other two modern day impeachments?
Well, first of all, I think you have to recognize that it's not an analogous comparison because we live in a different day technologically. In other words, the rise of a robust, vigorous alternative media based in the internet and round-the-clock cable TV coverage, which did not exist even when Bill Clinton was impeached, or certainly when Richard Nixon was impeached, has really changed the way this works. In all honesty, had we had the internet in 1973 and 4, Richard Nixon would have survived.
That's an interesting point. Why is that?
Well, because he had 3 TV networks that dominated and had a total stranglehold on political discourse in this country were against him. The major newspapers at the time were against him, the New York Times, the Washington Post. News magazines in those days had a lot more power. Newsweek, Time, Look, Life.
Could Donald Trump have been elected back then without Twitter?
Probably not. Remember, 2016, we reached the point where the country was so disgusted with politics and politicians and Washington that they were finally willing to go to someone who didn't come from a political background, someone who wasn't a general, someone who wasn't a governor or a senator or a congressman. They were ready to take a businessman, and it certainly has turned out well for our economy.
All right, so then how did Nixon's process, or leading up to his resignation, how did that differ from Bill Clinton's impeachment process?
Well, first of all, there's a timing question. The Nixon impeachment essentially took 2 years. It was the constant drip, drip, drip of additional information. And then, of course, the blockbuster that he had taped his own conversations, and that provided the grist for a national consensus among both Republicans and Democrats, including the Republicans in Congress. People like Barry Goldwater, people like Hugh Scott, people like John Rhodes, that Nixon had to go. And there was a consensus at that time, and he did the right thing for the country by stepping down. In the case of Bill Clinton, however, I think that the Republicans made the exact same error that the Democrats are making now. There was not a bipartisan consensus about Bill Clinton. Strangely enough, for reasons I don't understand, Ken Starr and Robert Ray elected to pursue him on the basis of lying regarding a personal relationship with an intern when there were much larger issues on which he should have been impeached. Selling technology to the Chinese in return for illegal campaign contributions and other larger issues. And therefore, as you know, although Bill Clinton was impeached, he was not convicted in the Senate, and the Democrats picked up seats in the House in the following election, which was a direct reaction to the Republicans' overreach in impeachment.
And I want to get deep into what do you think is going to happen in 2020 in a moment. But let me ask you this. What do you think? A lot of talk about that what the Democrats are doing, the case they're presenting. But from what we've seen limited of the president's defense team so far, what do you think about their strategy, how well they're doing?
Well, I think they're doing very well. I haven't been able to see as much of it as I would like. But I think Jay Sekulow particularly has done an excellent job of defining the issues.
Good style of public speaking. I like how he presents.
I'm a little surprised at the president's team. I mean, I would not have taken Ken Starr and Robert Ray. I would have taken Bob Barr, the former congressman from Georgia.
Good friend of the show. He's on often.
And the House manager of the impeachment, and one of the most brilliant lawyers I know. But I feel very good about the congressional members of this team as well, particularly Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan. I think these are very able men.
There's a real quiet, let's call it underground campaign to push Mark Meadows as the next White House chief of staff. I like the idea.
I like the idea, but I think it's also important to recognize that Donald Trump will always be his own chief of staff.
That's right.
Just as he was his own campaign manager and his own campaign strategist. I mean, he's not your typical political figure. He really is the master of his own fate, and he's very much his own man. So the White House chief of staff job is one of being an implementer, not one setting policy. And I think some people who had that job previously may have misunderstood that.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing news channel, now in 65 million homes. Get Newsmax TV on all the major cable systems or go to newsmaxtv.com and click on the Find Newsmax tab to locate us. Remember, Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.